Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Rizqiani Azizaturrohmah, and in this occasion I would like to explain my presentation about figurative languages analysis on Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's selected poems. And here are the table of contents. The first is background of study, the second is research questions, the third is objective of study, the fourth is significances of study, the fifth is literature review, the sixth is theoretical approach, the seventh is method of research, the eighth is paper organization. The first one is background of study. Why the researcher chooses Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's poems? There are three reasons why the researcher chooses Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's poems. The first reason is Rumi is an Islamic poet, and his poems are mostly expressing his feeling to the God and humanity. And the second is Rumi's poem is strongly influenced by Sufism, as he was also a Sufi. And the last reason is Rumi's poems use figurative languages in his poems. Then, what the researcher wants to do? The researcher wants to identify figurative languages used in Rumi's poems and the meaning of each figurative languages. And how to do that? The researcher analyzed the figurative languages in Rumi's poems with Perrin's theory and analyzed the meaning of each figurative languages. Next, there are research questions and objectives of study. The research questions, the first is, what kinds of figurative language are used in Rumi's selected poems? The second is, what is the meaning of each figurative language in Rumi's selected poems? And the objective of study, the first one is to figure out the kinds of figurative languages in Rumi's selected poems, and the second is to explain the meaning of each figurative language in Rumi's selected poems. Next, there is significances of study. The significances of study in this research is for the researcher, the reader, and the next researcher. Theoretically, this research is expected to enrich the study of elements of literary work, especially in figurative languages, to help understanding the meaning of poems. Practically, this research is expected to give benefits for the researcher, the reader, and the next researcher. This research can be useful for the researcher as an insight into linguistics used in literary work. This research also may help the readers to have more information about figurative languages in Rumi's selected poems, and this research can be used as a reference for the next researcher who want to research topics related to figurative languages. The next is literature review. The first literature review is a thesis by Wulandari 2015, her study entitled Figurative Languages Used in Robert Forrest's Selected Poems. She focuses on the dominant figurative language used in Robert Forrest's poems. The poems analyzed by Wulandari are Fire and Ice, The Road Not Taken, Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening, and Mending Wall. Then the second is a thesis by Maula 2017, her study entitled Meaning of Metaphor in Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's Poems. She only focuses on analyzing metaphor and its meaning in her study. She uses metaphor theory by Ullmann, and the poems analyzed by Maula are This Is Love, The Aloneness, The Meaning of Love, A Moment of Happiness, Aroused Passion, and Caught in the Fire of Love. The third is a thesis by Hasanah 2018, her research entitled Analysis of Figurative Language Used in Some Poems by Oscar Wilde. Her research focuses on the analysis of figurative language and contextual meaning. There are 15 types of figurative language she used. They are personification, hyperbole, synecdoche, totem parte, and praspatoto, repetition, metaphor, simile, symbol, lithothes, metonymy, apostrophe, denotative meaning, and imagery. The kinds of imagery are visual imagery, auditory imagery, and gustatory imagery. The last is a journal by Rabiuddin 2018. The journal entitled The Analysis of Figurative Language in Poems My Friend, My One True Love, and No Regrets by Shanna O'Connell. He focuses on analyzing kinds of figurative language used and analyzing the contextual meaning of each figurative language in selected poems. The previous studies above are using figurative language as a theory, but they have different objectives. The study by Malwa 2017 is using Maulana Jalaluddin Rumi's poem, but she only focuses on analyzing metaphor. The difference is that this research focuses on a wider types of figurative language. This research also focuses on contextual meaning of each figurative language, and this research has different selected poems to study. The next is theoretical approach. In this research, the researcher uses semantic theory focused on figurative languages based on Perrine's theory. Figurative language refers to words, a group of words that exaggerate or alter the usual meaning in figures of speeches of the component of words. A figure of speech may be said to occur whenever a speaker or writer, from the sake of freshness or emphasis, departs from the usual denotation of word. Then, method of research. The first one is type of research. This research uses qualitative research. The researcher called this research as qualitative research because the data are collected from the words of poems. Therefore, the researcher intends to explore the types of figurative languages in Rumi's poem by using figurative language theory. Since the writer observes several literature books and other supporting documents, so this research uses library research in conducting the research. The next is data sources. In this research, the source of the data is poems which are taken from a collection of Rumi's poem collection by Poem Hunter. Rumi's poems have many themes, such as love, mythical, tolerance, coexistence, and praise of God. In this research, there are 7 poems selected. They are The Privileged Lovers, When I Die, The Taste of Morning, O You Who Have Gone on Pilgrimage, Lovers, The Guest House, and Do You Love Me? The next is data collection technique. The close reading method is used as the technique in collecting the data in this research. Close reading is a detailed analysis of the verbal and figurative components within a work. The researcher does the procedures of collecting data into 3 steps. First, the researcher reads the poems by Jalaluddin Rumi. Second, the researcher determines them. Third, the researcher chooses the title of poems. Then the researcher identifies the figurative languages in those poems. Then there are data analysis technique. The data analysis technique of this research uses descriptive approach in which the data are taken from the poems and analyzed descriptively by applying semantic theory. After the data collected, the researcher divides the analysis technique into several steps. First, the researcher classifies poems based on the type of figurative language theory. Second, the researcher interprets the contextual meaning of each figurative language used in the poem. Last, the researcher finds the conclusion of the analysis. The last is paper organization. This research consists of 4 chapters. The first one is Introduction. It contains the background of study, research question, objectives of study, significances of study, literature review, theoretical approach, method of research, and paper organization. The second chapter is Theoretical Background. It presents explanation about figurative languages. The third chapter is Research Finding and Discussion. It applies the figurative languages theory and analyzes the meaning of each figurative language. And the last chapter is Conclusion. It shows conclusion and suggestion of this research. Okay, that's all from my presentation. Thank you for your time, and I hope to hear your feedback soon, either in the question or suggestion. Thank you for the time, and see you on another occasion. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.